a discussion about racism.
Welcome to the Hopefulist, a daily talk show hosted by veteran broadcaster Wendy McClure. Join Wendy each day as she shares her life lessons that transformed her from perpetual pessimist to the ultimate hopefulist. The perfect morning show to get you caught up on the day's top stories while sharing insights that will lead to positive transformation and bring out the hopefulist in you. For more inspiration, visit Hopefulist.com. And now, here's your host and hopefulist, Wendy McClure.
Hello there and welcome to a Thursday. It is June 18th, 2020, day 277 of Gotta Get on Ellen. Today is going to be a little bit different. I wanted to address what is going on in the world right now. I wanted to talk about how the death of George Floyd has affected me and the change I'd like to see in the world right now. I'm going to start out with the topic posted on the page yesterday on the removal of Gone with the Wind temporarily from services. Now, the issue with the movie is that it doesn't depict slave labor appropriately, with the O'Hara family having a good relationship with their slaves and depicting them as happy and being loved, which was not the case with a lot of slave owners. When it comes to this movie, this is one of my favorites, one of my favorite books, one of my favorite movies. This is historical fiction. It is not a textbook. It's not claiming to be historically accurate, although it is very historically accurate in lots of ways when it comes to timelines and battles and all of that type of stuff. I believe that Margaret Mitchell, who wrote the book, wanted to put the O'Hara family in the best possible light. I believe at the writing of this book, a lot of people were coming around to how wrong slave labor was. But if you think about the issue of them potentially treating the slaves in their lives, then I think that it might have been a whole completely different story and may have been received in a completely different way. This is the benefit of writing novels. It's not real. It's historical fiction. So authors have the liberty of including whatever they would like in their book. I get that this movie is considered one of the greatest of all time, and I can see how that can be problematic, but it is a movie. It is a movie. My thoughts on it. Your thoughts. Jim says, if we change history, we change everything. Corinne says it's part of the history of the country. Maybe not the best part, but it is what it was like then. Carolyn said it was my mother's favorite movie. It makes me sad. We can't change history by banning art. Kim says, I love the movie. Scarlett was one feisty biatch. If you don't like it, don't watch it. It's part of history no matter what you do. You cannot erase what happened. Just learn from it. Andy says, I think it's getting a little out of control, canceling Cops, PD Live, Paw Patrol, and today I read they're changing the name of Aunt Jemima and Mrs. Butterworth. I don't think they're changing the name. I think they're changing the images, but I'm not positive. He goes on to say tearing down statues does not change what happened. They should be used to teach. Germany left the concentration camps to warn future generations. The only thing I'll say with that is they're not glorifying the concentration camps. The movie is glorified, as are the statues that are being demanded to come down. When it comes to Germany, they don't have any statues of Hitler, I don't think. So there is a little bit of a difference. So, yeah, I get that we need to learn from it. But there is a difference between leaving something up as a part of history and celebrating it. Gigi says the current situation reminds me of a quote from George Orwell's 1984. Every record has been destroyed or falsified, every book rewritten, every picture has been repainted, every statue and street building has been renamed, every date has been altered. And the process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. Adele chimes in, Fahrenheit 451 comes to mind as well. Sandra says, I'm going to buy the movie soon. Kathy says, one of the most famous movies. What is next? Eve posted a picture. History is not there for you to like or dislike. It is there for you to learn from it. And if it offends you, even better, because then you are less likely to repeat it. It's not yours to erase. It belongs to all of us. I will say this. I do not have an issue with them putting some kind of message before the movie saying what some of the issues are with the depiction of slave labor or whatever else that you want to, include in that, stating that this is how it was at the time. I mean, it is about the Civil War. So it's about freeing of the slaves. I don't think there's anything wrong with putting a little message in the beginning, warning of the content and saying this is how far we've come. Connie says, one of my favorite movies. I think all of this is uncalled for. Marcy says, I have a problem when people try to ban art that reflects history. Margaret Mitchell didn't invent slavery. She didn't condone it or endorse it. She wrote a story that included a reflection of society at that point in history. If anything, they should include a disclaimer. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Marcy. During the movie that puts the portrayal of slaves in perspective. Kate says, I never saw it, but I think people are going a little crazy with destroying or getting rid of historic figures, movies, cartoons, etc. Erasing the past won't make what happened back then disappear. I did hear last night, though, they changed their minds and Gone with the Wind is no longer banned. We can't change the past. Banning, censoring, destroying reminders of the past doesn't erase or change it. As a human race, we need to do the right thing going forward. People need to open their hearts, their minds, and practice empathy so we can be one race. Martin, I have a problem with removing all historical statues, documents, and items that people are offended by. Erasing things from our history isn't going to help. And I feel these things and people in history are a good eye-opener into teaching and learning from things that we made mistakes and wrongdoings. Michelle says, I feel sick about the entire thing. History is what it is, good or bad. It should not be erased. Linda says, I first read the book and it was the start of my love of reading. I love the movie even more. While I work of historical fiction, it is more of a love story than a commentary on slavery. Also worth noting, the first black actress to ever win an Academy Award was in this movie, Hattie McDaniel. And if we are continue to grow as human beings, we can't bury the past. Deborah says, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that we are trying to erase history versus learning from it. Megan says, it's my favorite book and movie. I have no problem with them temporarily removing it to add information about how the movie doesn't portray slavery accurately. It's a great way to actually teach how history has been skewed, because Gone with the Wind shouldn't be looked at as a history lesson. Although Mitchell was extremely accurate on the battles, the timeline, and Reconstruction, but as a story of how a woman did everything she could to survive a changing world. Mina says, I haven't watched it in years, but I feel like we are in our Me Too moment for racial equality. I don't care that they aren't running it. It's not the end of the world. It's hard to say what we keep and get rid of. I don't know that many people who are obsessed with the movie. If they don't have a copy, then they can watch it at home if needed. I know a lot of people who are obsessed with that movie, myself included. I used to have it on DVR. I would wait for it to come on, the Classic Movie Network or AMC or what have you and just record it and keep it on hand. I had not had a chance to do that since we've been in this house, and now I don't know if I'll get a chance to do that. But there's always an option to see it in some way, shape, or form. I'm going to move on to the blog post, and I started with posting a picture of the peaceful protest in my area that I took part of. And one of the signs that I saw there that I just loved, and I really wish I would have been able to get a picture of the actual sign, but there was writing on one side and writing on the other side, just flipping it back and forth. So what the sign said is this: I no longer will accept the things I cannot change. Instead, I will change the things I cannot accept. So I've hesitated to talk about this for fear of judgment. I started by posting my support for change on my personal page, and I worried that my friends and family would judge me or argue with me. And then I realized, if that was my biggest fear, how lucky am I? Black people go out into the world every day fearing judgment, harsh treatment, and potential violence based on how they look. It made me realize the very least I could do is speak up and pledge my support, to ask, what can I do to help? I want to understand better. I want to do what I can to be the change we are all seeking. It's been a terrible time in our country, but I like to think that all of us are finally realizing how awful and how different people of color get treated, and we all want to see that change. Even if you have black friends, you likely still have notions about how people of color are and the way you act around them. White people are taught to think black people can be dangerous. It's not a sit down and tell you how it is like it would be like with a sex talk. It's more learned by observing things that are said in passing. And society as a whole, we are taught that big black men are scary, the same way that we think that ghosts are scary. It is a learned behavior. I'm not pointing any fingers or laying blame. I'm just pointing out that this starts early and gets ingrained in us quickly. Do you cross the street when you see black people coming? Do you pull your purse a little tighter when people of color get close to you on a train or in a store? Do you have preconceived notions when going through a neighborhood predominantly made up with people of color? I have done all of these things. No one ever told me to do it. It's learned behavior. It doesn't make us bad people. It just means we need to learn a new behavior. One that doesn't judge people by the color of their skin, but by the kind of person that they are. This is what I've been thinking about since the killing of George Floyd. That black people leave their house every day knowing they will be looked at a certain way. If you aren't one of the people that do that, good for you. But there are many who do. Kids walking down the street more likely will get stopped and asked if they're looking for trouble. Sometimes that happens to white groups too. But from what I've seen, it's less often. People of color know they will be looked at a little closer while shopping in a store. They know they will be avoided out on the street. Even if they are a model citizen, it doesn't matter. They are looked at a certain way because of how they look, something they have no control over. I read a story recently about a black man who went to fill up his wife's car with gas late one night. While there, he saw a woman in her car pick up her phone and make a call while staring at him. Officers come flying into the gas station and start questioning him about a robbery that took place down the street. They said he fit the description of the suspect. Which part, he asked. It was a black man. That's all they had to go on. They were in the process of arresting him when a white man spoke up, saying he saw the man drive in from the opposite direction of the robbery. They finally let him go only because a white person spoke up on his behalf. Now reverse that. Do you think police would let a white person go based on what a black person said about the situation? These are some of the things I am opening my eyes to. Have you ever seen a person of color drive by in a luxury car and hear someone say, "Wonder where you got that"? It's not likely the same as ever said about a white driver. This is systematic. This is ingrained in us. This is what needs to change. I saw a video recently that showed black parents telling their children how to respond when dealing with police. Make sure your hands are seen at all times. Tell the officer you are unarmed and have no intention of hurting them. Is this a conversation you or the white people in your life have ever had to have with their children? I was pulled over a few weeks back when I glided through a stop sign. The officer said, "Well, you blew through that stop sign." I said, "Well, I didn't blow through it. I mean, I didn't stop completely, but I didn't blow through it." Not only did he not give me a hard time for talking back to him, I didn't even get a ticket. Do you think it would have been the same scenario if I had been a woman of color, kind of getting snippy? Do not misunderstand what I am saying. I am in no way anti-police. I fully support officers and appreciate all they do for the public every day. Just because there are a couple of bad cops doesn't mean they all are. I agree, 100%. But this is what black people have been saying their entire lives. Just because you know some people of color who were bad seeds doesn't mean that all of them should be judged the same way. I've been treated harshly by some black people in my life. I have been treated harshly by some white people in my life. I don't think any of the situations I have encountered justify a fear of living your life, thinking you could be killed at any time because of how you look. We need to speak up when we feel something is wrong. We need to use our voice to make the changes we want to see. People of color have been trying to tell us this for many years. We have not been listening. I think people are open to suggestions at this point, judging from the amount of protests. I attended a peaceful protest in my neighborhood because I see the need for change. They need our help. Tell us what you need. Tell me what you need me to do, because I do want to help. You don't have to agree with me. You are entitled to an entirely different point of view, and I respect that. So if you would like to respectfully post your opinion, I would love to discuss it. Meanwhile, it is Thursday, and I hope that you can go make today the very best it can possibly be.
Thank you for listening to The Hopefulist, hosted by Wendy McClure. For more inspiration, please visit hopefulist.com. Thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow on The Hopefulist.